Have you ever believed someone with every fiber of your being, only to realize that every smile, every promise, every whispered word was nothing but a lie? My name is Amelia Hartley, and I want to tell you a story that begins with heartbreak, betrayal, and the awakening of a strength I never knew existed inside me. This isn't just my story. It's a story of reclaiming power, of taking back everything a man thought he could own and discard without consequence. I was 29 when I first met Derek Lawson. It was an autumn evening in Boston, one of those crisp nights when the streets glisten from an earlier rain, and the city lights shimmer like scattered diamonds on wet pavement. The air smelled faintly of roasted chestnuts from street vendors, a comforting aroma that mingled with the soft hum of distant traffic. I wandered into a small, cozy bookstore in search of a rare edition of a poetry collection. That's when I saw him, leaning casually against the counter, flipping through a photography magazine. Our eyes met. There was an instant spark, a strange electricity, the kind you can't explain, only feel. Over the next few weeks, our encounters multiplied, almost as if fate was nudging us together. A shared coffee, a casual chat about books, laughter spilling over a cafe table. Everything felt effortless, natural, and in hindsight, alarmingly perfect. Derek was everything I thought I wanted: intelligent, charming, confident, with a presence that commanded attention without demanding it. But what drew me even more was the way he made me feel truly seen, as though my thoughts and dreams mattered in a world that often seemed indifferent. We grew close quickly. Within months, we were inseparable, sharing every detail of our lives. Our conversations stretched for hours, ranging from trivial matters to intimate confessions. Derek introduced me to his friends, his routines, his habits, and I shared mine. It felt like a perfect partnership, a seamless blending of two lives that belonged together. After a year, we moved in together. Marriage soon became a natural topic of discussion. I envisioned a life with him, Sunday mornings with coffee on our balcony, traveling to quiet European towns, celebrating birthdays and anniversaries with laughter and warmth. I trusted him completely. But trust is a fragile thing, and illusions are delicate. The first signs of trouble were subtle. Derek began disappearing for hours without explanation, returning home distracted, answering my messages vaguely. I wanted to believe it was just stress or work pressure. But there was something in his eyes, a distance, a flicker of unease, that I couldn't ignore. And then came the small lies: I have a late meeting, I'm out with a client, I need to work through the evening. They sounded plausible. I wanted to believe him, to hold on to the man I loved. Yet, the unease gnawed at me. One afternoon, I decided to surprise Derek with lunch at our favorite bistro. I wanted to see the smile that had drawn me in, to remind him that I noticed the little things he loved. But as I entered, the waiter looked at me with sympathy and whispered, "I think he's with someone else today." A woman. He reserved a private table. I froze. My heart skipped a beat. Denial was my first instinct. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. Perhaps she was a colleague, a friend. But as I stepped inside, the truth hit me like a storm. Derek was laughing, leaning close, holding hands with a woman I didn't know, a woman who had replaced me in an instant. Shock, disbelief, anger, all collided in my chest. My mind raced. How long? Why? How could he do this to me, to us? I left the bistro without confrontation, tears blurring my vision, heart shattering with each step. That night, I stared at the walls of our apartment, at photos of us, moments I had cherished, now cruel reminders of betrayal. Sleep eluded me. I replayed every conversation, every promise, every touch, searching for signs I might have missed. And in the midst of despair, something unexpected stirred, a flicker of anger, not fleeting, but deep and consuming. Anger that demanded acknowledgement, action, justice. Days passed. Derek continued his life as if nothing had happened. He flaunted his new relationship, attended parties, traveled, smiling openly, living as though he had done nothing wrong. Friends noticed my absence from his side but didn't know the storm brewing inside me. Then I realized, I didn't need him. I didn't need his love or approval. And yet, the idea of him living without consequence ignited a plan, subtle and strategic, that would change everything. I began observing him. Quietly. Patiently. I noted what he valued: routines, obsessions, connections, weaknesses. I rebuilt myself, skills, networks, and confidence I had ignored while lost in love. Every meeting, every project, every friendship I nurtured became part of a foundation he never suspected existed. At first, it wasn't revenge, it was reclaiming myself. But clarity came quickly. If Derek thought discarding me would go unpunished, he was gravely mistaken. I didn't just want him to regret losing me, I wanted him to witness the woman he underestimated rise stronger, smarter, unstoppable. The first test came when he invited me to a social dinner. Likely thinking I still carried affection, I accepted, but on my terms. I arrived composed, radiant, confident. He noticed, just slightly, a flicker of surprise, a hesitation. That moment confirmed something: Amelia Hartley was no longer the woman he could discard. I began planting subtle reminders of my presence. Little gestures, calculated interactions, hints of my independence and power. His reactions, hesitant glances, uneven smiles, brief moments of doubt, thrilled me. I had tasted the power of reclaiming control, and it was intoxicating. With every passing day, I became more deliberate. I reconnected with old friends, expanded my professional influence, refined neglected aspects of myself. Derek's new relationship became my mirror, not of pain, but potential. I was no longer a woman crushed by heartbreak, I was a force gaining momentum. The first major shift came at a client gala, a critical event for Derek's business. By coincidence or design, I attended. When he saw me, recognition flashed across his face, mingled with curiosity. Polite smiles, measured conversations, yet underneath, he sensed the difference. I had transformed. Walking home alone that night, reflections of streetlights on wet asphalt mirrored my resolve. I recalled every laugh, every whispered promise, every memory, and silently vowed, Derek Lawson would never forget the day he chose someone else over me. He would never forget Amelia Hartley, the woman he underestimated, the woman rising from betrayal stronger, smarter, unstoppable. The path ahead was clear. Strategic. Subtle. Relentless. Every move calculated, every interaction deliberate. Not reckless vengeance, but precision. Not chaos, but inevitability. Derek's life, the life he flaunted without me, would unravel, not out of spite, but consequence. As I set my plan in motion, a single thought echoed: heartbreak had forged something new within me, a determination, a cunning, a fire that would not be extinguished. He thought he had won. He thought he could move on. He was wrong. Very wrong. The journey was only beginning, yet I already felt the power of reclaiming what was mine. When Derek finally understood the depth of his loss, it would be too late. Every lie, every choice, every betrayal had led us here. And I was ready to play a game he never knew existed, with stakes higher than either of us could imagine. Amelia sat quietly in her apartment, the soft hum of the city below barely registering in her mind. Her hands trembled slightly as she held a cup of lukewarm coffee, her thoughts consumed entirely by the betrayal she had suffered. Derek had shattered her world, the man she had trusted implicitly, the man she had envisioned spending her life with, had left her for another woman. Yet, instead of collapsing entirely under the weight of heartbreak, Amelia felt a spark ignite within her, a fire fueled by hurt, anger, and an unyielding desire to reclaim the life and dignity that had been stolen from her. She wasn't just going to survive this betrayal, she was going to rewrite the rules. Her first step was to gather information. Amelia's meticulous nature served her well here. She had always been observant, noticing small details about people and situations that others overlooked. She started by analyzing Derek's routines, his work habits, the friends he confided in, and the places he frequented. Every Instagram post, every Facebook check-in, every subtle hint of where he spent his nights, all became pieces of a puzzle she was determined to solve. She knew that to take back everything he cherished, she needed a strategic plan, something methodical, precise, and unrelenting. Amelia began by reconnecting with mutual friends. She carefully approached them, subtly probing for information about Derek's current life and his relationship with the woman he had left her for, a woman named Vanessa. Vanessa was everything Amelia was not: flamboyant, extroverted, effortlessly charming. Derek had been drawn to her magnetic personality, a stark contrast to Amelia's calm, calculated presence. Yet, that difference was exactly what Amelia would use to her advantage. Her first act of revenge wasn't dramatic, it was psychological. She sent Derek a message that seemed innocent at first, a casual note checking in, asking about work, pretending as if she had moved on entirely. Derek, predictably, responded with arrogance, a smug tone, the kind that assumed she would never truly hurt him. But Amelia was already 3 steps ahead. She began planting seeds of doubt in Derek's carefully curated social circle. Innocuous comments, subtle reminders of his past with Amelia, little glimpses of the person he had once loved and lost. It wasn't about anger, it was about reclamation. She wanted Derek to feel the emptiness that came from losing someone who had truly understood him. Next, Amelia targeted Derek's professional life. Derek worked in a high-profile finance firm, a world where reputation was everything. Amelia knew about a confidential project he was leading, one he had been working on for months. Using her technical skills, she accessed publicly available information about the project, cross-referencing it with insider tips she had gleaned from casual conversations with Derek's colleagues. She didn't sabotage him directly, that would be reckless, but she created situations that exposed his arrogance, moments that made him appear unreliable without anyone connecting it to her. It was subtle, meticulous, and devastatingly effective. As weeks passed, Amelia's influence began to manifest. Derek's colleagues, once admirers of his brilliance, started questioning his decisions. Emails that once went unnoticed were now scrutinized, meetings that once flowed smoothly now ended in frustration and confusion. Amelia watched from afar, a faint smile on her lips, not because she wanted him to fail, but because justice, in its quiet, strategic form, was being served. Meanwhile, Vanessa began to feel the consequences of her involvement with Derek. Amelia's subtle interventions caused minor rifts in Vanessa's social standing. Invitations she once took for granted were delayed or denied. Friends who had once admired her charisma started questioning her intentions. Amelia never interacted directly, she let the world shift on its own, a domino effect triggered by careful observation and calculated action. Amelia also focused on Derek's personal life beyond Vanessa. She knew the man thrived on routine, on comfort, on the predictable elements that defined his world. By influencing small, seemingly insignificant aspects of his daily life, Amelia introduced instability. Derek's favorite cafe began offering a new menu he disliked. His morning jogging path was unexpectedly closed for construction. Subtle frustrations, each harmless alone, collectively created a growing sense of unease. Derek began to feel that the world was no longer bending to his whims. The psychological toll was evident. Derek's confidence wavered, and the arrogance that had once defined him slowly chipped away. He started to notice the little disruptions, but couldn't pinpoint their origin. Each day, he felt a creeping sense of anxiety, a persistent reminder of the person he had underestimated. And every time he thought of Amelia, it was with a pang of regret, a gnawing realization that she was more formidable than he had ever imagined. Amelia's own life, in contrast, flourished. She threw herself into her passions, pursued new opportunities, and reconnected with friends she had neglected. Each act of self-improvement reinforced her sense of power and independence. The revenge was no longer solely about Derek, it had become about reclaiming her own narrative, writing her story on her own terms. Her confidence radiated, visible in her posture, her voice, her interactions with the world. Yet, Amelia never allowed herself to be consumed by hatred. Her revenge was precise, intentional, and rooted in justice, not malice. She reminded herself constantly that this was about empowerment, about showing Derek, and anyone else who might betray her, that underestimating her was a critical mistake. Every strategic move, every small victory, reinforced the lesson she had learned: strength often comes not from force, but from patience, intelligence, and resilience. Then came the moment that defined the crescendo of her plan. Derek, increasingly frustrated with his unraveling world, reached out to Amelia in a desperate attempt to reconnect. His tone was measured, almost pleading, as if he believed a casual interaction could restore the past. Amelia listened calmly, her heart steady, her mind clear. She responded with poise, a subtle blend of compassion and assertiveness. She didn't shame him, didn't yell or accuse, she simply outlined the consequences of his actions, the reality of the world he had disrupted, and the changes she had enacted. Her words were precise, impactful, and unforgettable. Derek was forced to confront the full extent of her influence, the quiet storm she had orchestrated with patience and precision. By the time the confrontation ended, Amelia had achieved what she had sought from the beginning, a sense of closure and empowerment. Derek, once arrogant and dismissive, now understood the depth of his mistake. He saw the strength, intelligence, and determination in the woman he had left behind. Amelia, on the other hand, felt liberated. She had not only reclaimed what was taken from her but had also discovered the boundless potential within herself. Amelia's revenge was complete, not in chaos or destruction, but in quiet, undeniable triumph. She had turned heartbreak into power, betrayal into strategy, and pain into personal growth. And as she walked through the city streets, head held high, she knew one undeniable truth: she was no longer defined by Derek or anyone else. She was defined by her own courage, her own intelligence, and her unwavering determination to reclaim her life on her own terms. Amelia had waited for this moment for months, every sleepless night fueling her determination. She sat in her car, parked across the street from Derek's new penthouse apartment. The city lights glimmered in the distance, but her focus was entirely on the building in front of her. Every detail mattered. She had studied his routines, learned the exact times he left and returned. Tonight was the night she would finish what she had started. She checked her watch. Derek would be home any minute. Amelia's mind replayed every betrayal, every deceit. She remembered the nights she cried silently, the promises he had made and broken, the way he had looked at her before he walked away for another woman. The anger had never left, it had only grown sharper, more precise. Amelia took a deep breath, stepping out of the car. She walked to the building's entrance, maintaining the calm, composed expression she had perfected over months. The concierge greeted her with a nod. "Good evening, Miss Sterling," he said. "Everything ready for tonight's event?" Amelia smiled politely. "Yes, thank you. Everything is perfect." She walked past the lobby, straight into the elevator. Inside the elevator, she reviewed the plan one last time. Tonight, she wasn't just going to confront Derek, she was going to dismantle the life he had built, piece by piece. Every business deal, every relationship, every secret he thought was safe, she had carefully mapped out and was ready to expose. When the elevator doors opened, Amelia stepped onto the penthouse floor. The space was sleek and modern, filled with luxurious furniture and expensive artwork. Derek had spared no expense to show the world how successful he had become without her. But Amelia didn't see wealth or elegance, she saw fragility, a house built on lies. She made her way quietly into the kitchen, where she knew Derek kept his private safe. Inside that safe were documents, contracts, and digital drives, everything he used to manipulate others, everything he thought would remain hidden. Amelia's fingers trembled slightly as she opened the safe, but only from anticipation, not fear. She carefully collected everything she needed, knowing this evidence would be the weapon that finalized her revenge. As she was organizing the documents, she heard footsteps above. Derek had returned earlier than expected. Her heart raced, not with fear, but with exhilaration. She adjusted her hair, straightened her outfit, and walked toward the living room, where Derek would enter. Derek opened the door, surprised to see Amelia. "Amelia. What are you doing here?" he asked, his voice a mix of confusion and panic. He hadn't expected her to come alone, hadn't expected her to be so calm. Amelia smiled softly. "I came to settle things," she said. "Once and for all." Derek laughed nervously, trying to mask his unease. Settle things? What do you mean? Amelia's smile widened, and she placed the documents on the coffee table. You know exactly what I mean. The truth, Derek. All of it. Derek's eyes widened as he recognized the documents. Where did you get these? How? Amelia cut him off. Months of planning, Derek. Months of learning about your little empire, your secrets, and your lies. You thought you could escape, that you could walk away with her and leave me behind. But you underestimated me. Derek's face paled. He had never seen Amelia like this, strong, composed, and utterly unstoppable. Amelia, please. She interrupted him. No more excuses. No more lies. Everything you valued, everything you thought was untouchable, it's all going to be exposed. She handed him a tablet, showing videos of Derek's private dealings, his manipulations, and evidence of the betrayal against her. Derek stumbled backward, unable to find words. Amelia continued, her voice steady, unwavering. I didn't come here to beg, Derek. I came here to take what you took from me, respect, dignity, and the control you thought you had over my life. Derek's hands trembled. Amelia, you can't do this, people will ruin me. Amelia shook her head. I've done more than just plan this. I've ensured that everyone who mattered will see the truth. You built your life on deceit, Derek. Tonight, it ends. Amelia moved to the balcony, overlooking the city skyline. The cool wind brushed against her face as she pulled out her phone and made one final call. Within minutes, the evidence she had collected was being distributed to business partners, friends, and even the media. Derek's empire, built on manipulation and lies, began to crumble instantly. Derek followed her to the balcony, panic written across his face. Amelia, stop. You don't understand what you're doing, she turned to him, eyes blazing. I understand perfectly. You broke my heart, Derek. You chose someone else over the love we shared. And now, you're going to face the consequences of your actions. The phone in her hand buzzed with notifications. Emails, messages, and calls confirmed that her plan was unfolding exactly as she had intended. Derek's empire was collapsing, relationships crumbling, and secrets surfacing. Amelia felt a strange mix of satisfaction and liberation. The power she had been denied for so long was finally hers. As Derek sank to the floor, defeated and humiliated, Amelia spoke with finality. You wanted to hurt me, Derek. But look at you now. Everything you loved, everything you held dear, it's all gone. And I am still standing, stronger than ever. She turned her back to him, walking slowly toward the elevator. Each step echoed with the confidence she had reclaimed over months of planning. Derek could only watch, powerless, as Amelia exited his life for good. Outside, Amelia stepped into the night. The city lights shimmered like 1,000 opportunities ahead. She didn't feel anger anymore, only freedom. The years of heartbreak, betrayal, and planning had culminated in this moment. She had taken control of her life and her destiny. Derek's downfall was complete, but Amelia's story was just beginning. Amelia walked away from the penthouse, her mind calm, her heart steady. She knew she would never allow anyone to control her again. Her revenge had been precise, calculated, and complete, but more importantly, she had reclaimed herself. For the first time in years, Amelia smiled, not because of revenge, but because she had survived it. She had turned pain into power, heartbreak into strength, and betrayal into a lesson she would never forget. As the night deepened, Amelia disappeared into the city streets, leaving behind the ruins of Derek's life and the echoes of a woman who refused to be broken. And somewhere, in the quiet aftermath of his crumbling empire, Derek realized that no matter what he had, some hearts could never be owned, and some people could never be broken. Amelia had won. She had taken everything without compromise, without mercy, and without regret.